Daniel was the kind of man who remembered everything. He remembered the way Sarah laughed when something surprised her, a short burst, then a longer one, like she was giving herself permission. He remembered how she liked her tea with just a little honey and no milk. He remembered the name of her childhood dog, the street she grew up on, and the way she always looked out the window when she was thinking hard about something. Daniel paid attention. That was simply who he was. He met Sarah on a rainy Thursday in October, 3 years before any of this happened. They were both waiting for the same bus, and she had no umbrella. He offered to share his. She said no at first, politely, the way people do when they do not want to be a bother. He held it over her anyway, without making a big deal of it. She laughed. That was the beginning. They exchanged numbers that evening. He texted first, the next morning, just a simple message asking if she had made it home dry. She replied with a smiley face and a thank you. From that small exchange, something grew, slowly, carefully, the way things grow when both people are a little afraid of them. For the first few months, everything felt easy. They met for coffee on weekends. They talked for hours about books they loved and places they wanted to see. Daniel told her about his dream of visiting Japan in the spring, when the cherry blossoms were in bloom. Sarah told him about her fear of flying and her love of road trips. They laughed a lot. They were comfortable together in a way that felt rare and good. But Sarah had one habit that Daniel noticed early and chose to overlook. Whenever things felt too close, too real, too warm, she stepped back. It was never anything dramatic. She would simply become a little more distant, reply a little more slowly, find reasons to be busy. Then, just as Daniel began to adjust to the new distance, she would pull close again, full of warmth and laughter, as if nothing had changed. He told himself it was just the way she was. He told himself she needed time. He was a patient man, and patience, he believed, was a form of love. The first time Daniel said something real, something that came from deep inside him, they had been friends for about 4 months. They were sitting on a park bench after a long walk, and the sun was going down, and everything around them was golden and quiet. He turned to her and said he enjoyed being with her more than he enjoyed being with anyone else. He said it simply, without drama. Sarah smiled at him, a warm, beautiful smile, and said, "You are one of the best people I know, Daniel." Then she looked away at the sunset. She did not say what he had hoped she would say. But she did not say anything that told him to stop hoping, either. And so he held on. The months that followed became a kind of quiet push and pull. Daniel would plan something thoughtful, a surprise lunch, tickets to a show she had mentioned once in passing, a book left at her door with a note inside. Sarah always smiled, always thanked him, always made him feel like the effort mattered. But she never once reached for his hand first. She never once planned something for him. She received everything he gave her and offered very little in return, not because she was a mean person, but because she had not yet learned how to give that way. His friends saw it before he did. His closest friend Marcus sat across from him one evening at a small restaurant and said, as gently as he could, "She is not choosing you, Daniel. She just does not want to lose you." Daniel stirred his coffee and said Marcus did not fully understand the situation. Marcus did not push further. He simply watched, with quiet concern, as his friend continued to hope. A year passed. Then another. Daniel told Sarah he had feelings for her 3 different times over those 2 years. Each time, she listened with kind eyes and said something that was neither a yes nor a no. She said she was not ready. She said she was still figuring herself out. She said he deserved someone who was certain, and she just was not certain yet. Each time, Daniel said he understood, and he meant it. But he stayed. He was always there, like a light she could come back to whenever the world felt dark. There was a night in the 2nd year when Sarah came to his apartment upset about something that had gone wrong at work. She cried, and he made her tea with honey and no milk, and he sat beside her on the couch and listened for 2 hours. At the end, she rested her head on his shoulder and said, "I do not know what I would do without you." He felt something warm and painful at the same time, because he knew those words were true, and he also knew they were not the words he was waiting for. He cooked for her. He drove her to the airport at 5 in the morning when she had an early flight. He picked her up when her car broke down on the highway. He showed up, every single time, in every single way. And every single time, She accepted his presence as if it were simply part of the agreement between them, a thing she could count on, like the sun rising. His 90th day of quiet hoping passed. Then his 95th. He stopped counting out loud, but somewhere inside him, he was counting. The 99th moment came on a Tuesday evening. Daniel had cooked dinner at his apartment, her favorite meal, a simple pasta with fresh tomatoes and basil, because she once mentioned it reminded her of a trip to Italy she took years ago. He had set the table carefully. Not with candles or flowers or anything that might feel like pressure. Just a clean table, good food, and the intention to finally say, clearly and calmly, what he needed to say. Sarah arrived 40 minutes late. She came in already distracted, checking her phone, apologizing quickly and then returning to the screen. She ate quickly and said the food was wonderful. Then she said she needed to leave early because a friend needed her help with something. She was already putting on her jacket as she said it. Daniel stood in his kitchen after she left and looked at the 2 plates, one of them barely touched, and the quiet of the room settled over him like something heavy. He did not feel angry. He felt tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that builds slowly, over 1,000 small moments, until one evening it simply arrives all at once. He did not text her good night that night. For the first time in over 2 years, he did not send that small, familiar message. He put his phone face down on the table and went to bed. In the days that followed, Daniel made a quiet decision. He was not going to make a speech or send a long message or explain himself in detail. He was simply going to stop. Stop initiating. Stop rearranging his schedule around her availability. Stop being a light she could switch on and off at her own convenience. He was not angry. He was done. He signed up for a photography class he had been putting off for years. He booked a solo trip to Lisbon, something he had almost done twice before but cancelled both times because something had come up with Sarah. He started sleeping better. He started laughing more easily. He had not realized how much energy he had been spending on someone who was not spending anything on him. 3 weeks went by. Sarah noticed the silence the way you notice a familiar sound only after it disappears, like a clock that has been ticking in a room for years, and one day stops. At first she assumed he was busy. Then she thought maybe she had said something wrong. She scrolled back through their messages looking for the thing that had changed. She found nothing obvious. She just found his warmth, steady and constant, right up until the point where it was not there anymore. She texted him on a Saturday afternoon, "Hey, it has been quiet from your side. Everything okay?" He replied 4 hours later, "Yes, all good. Hope you are doing well." She read those words and felt something strange move through her. It was not a dramatic feeling. It was quieter than that, and more uncomfortable. It was the feeling of reaching for something that had always been there and finding empty air. She called her older sister that evening. Her sister, Nadia, had always been honest with her in a way that was sometimes hard to hear. Nadia listened to the whole story, really listened, without interrupting, and then she said something simple. She said, "You kept him close because he made you feel safe. But safety without effort is not love, Priya. It is just convenience." Sarah sat with those words for a long time. She began to look back at everything clearly, perhaps for the first time. She saw the dinners he had planned. The early morning airport runs. The evenings he had spent listening to her problems without once making it about himself. She saw how consistently he had shown up and how consistently she had taken that for granted, not out of cruelty, but out of the assumption that he would always be there. That he was too steady to leave. She had been wrong. She called him the following Wednesday. Her voice was calm but careful, the way a person speaks when they are trying to say something real and are afraid of saying it wrong. She asked if they could meet, in person, just to talk. He said yes, without much warmth, but without unkindness either. They met at the same small cafe where they had spent many weekend mornings over the past 3 years. She was already there when he arrived, sitting with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. He noticed that she had arrived early. That was new. She did not make excuses. She did not talk around the things she wanted to say. She looked at him across the table and she told him the truth. She said she had been afraid. She said she had not known how to let someone fully in, and that instead of being honest about that fear, she had let him stay close enough to feel good but far enough away that she never had to be truly vulnerable. She said she had not been fair to him. And she said she was sorry, not as a way to fix things, but because it was simply true. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you," she said quietly. "But I am asking anyway. Can you give me one real chance? Not another maybe. I mean a real chance, where I actually show up." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. The cafe was warm around them, and outside the window the street was busy with ordinary Tuesday life. He thought about the park bench 3 years ago and the golden evening light. He thought about the pasta dinner and the empty chair across from him. He thought about the nights he had lain awake trying to understand what he was doing wrong, when the truth was that he had never been doing anything wrong at all. He spoke slowly and honestly. He said he had loved her in every way he knew how. He said he had been patient because he believed she was worth it, and he had believed that for a very long time. But he also said that somewhere along the way, he had realized that patience without return is not devotion. It is just disappearing into someone else's life while your own stands still. "I am not the same person who waited at that dinner table," he said. "I had to become someone else to be okay. And I think the person I have become needs something different from what we were." Sarah nodded slowly. Her eyes were full, but she did not cry. She understood. Daniel paid for both coffees, the way he always had. Then he stood, looked at her with something that was neither cold nor warm but simply honest, and said, "Take care of yourself." He meant it. He walked out of the cafe and into the ordinary afternoon, and he did not look back. In the months that followed, Daniel went to Lisbon. He walked along the river and took photographs of old buildings and ate fresh fish at small tables on quiet streets. He came back looking like himself again, or perhaps like a newer version of himself, calmer, steadier, more complete. He eventually met someone who planned things with him, who showed up without being asked, who made him feel chosen every day. He was not looking for her when she arrived. But when she did, he was ready. Sarah took the harder road, as people often do when the lesson comes late. She started therapy, not because of Daniel, but because his absence had lit up something in her that she could no longer ignore. She learned that her fear of closeness was not a personality trait. It was something that could be worked through. She learned to stay present in moments that felt too real, instead of escaping them. She learned, slowly, to let people in. She thought about Daniel sometimes. Not with bitterness, and not with the kind of longing that paralyzes. Just with a clear-eyed understanding of what she had been given and what she had not known how to hold on to. She hoped he was happy. She believed he was. And somewhere in that cafe, on an ordinary Tuesday, something had quietly ended, not with raised voices or broken things, but with honesty, and coffee, and the simple dignity of two people finally telling each other the truth. Some love stories do not end with a reunion. They end with a person finally learning their own worth, and walking forward into a life that reflects it. That is what happened here. And it was enough. End.